everyone. Calling the Honolulu Police Commission meeting to order. Today is January 6th, Wednesday at 2:00 p.m. And we are here live at the Honolulu Police Department, Alapai Station, and also conducting the meeting via YouTube with those joining via WebEx. Pursuant to the 17th Supplementary Proclamation of Governor Ige, issued on December 16th, an emergency order issued by Mayor Kirk Caldwell on December 23rd, and to comply with social distancing requirements, we are conducting this meeting with observance of social distancing and mask wearing. No public entry will be allowed for testimony on the agenda items. However, we are welcoming testimony, both written and via telephone. And in a few minutes, we'll be conducting the public testimony. Before we start, I wanted to acknowledge the presence of Commissioners Vice Chair Gibson, Commissioner Okinaga, Commissioner Perry, Commissioner Broderick, live here, along with staff of HPC and Corporation Counsel, Dwayne Pang, and currently with him is
Haley Chi.
Thank you. Haley Chi is also joining us from the Office of the Corporation Counsel. Thank you, Haley, and welcome. Chief McCarthy, if I could ask if you could introduce who is joining. Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to also recognize Commissioner Doug Chin joining us via WebEx. Hi, Doug. And now I'll ask Chief McCarthy to introduce who is present with you via WebEx.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I got Deputy Chief Takasaki Young. I have Major Mike Lambert here. He'll have a short presentation for you when it's our turn. And I have our PIO today is Sarah Yorl. That's all in attendance here. And then, of course, the 6 assistant chiefs are also online.
Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate that. At this time, we would ask for Corporation Counsel to confirm quorum.
Madam Chair, you do have quorum.
Thank you very much. Moving on, we will be taking public testimony before we get into our agenda. And at this time, we will be calling upon 3 individuals who requested delivering of public testimony. First up, Mr. Thomas Miller. We'll give it a couple more rings for everyone's information.
You have reached the voicemail
We did try to
box
reach out to Mr. Miller this morning. Thank you to Aaron, but he did not answer. We will follow up with him and request that he join us at the next HPC meeting. Next up, we have Mr. Mohammed O'Day from Honolulu Crime News. And included in your packets is a copy of Mr. O'Day's letter from the Office of Information Practices, which he shared with us. This is a follow-up from his earlier communication with the Commission expressing concern about the response time of HPD for requests for mugshots.
Hello?
Hi, may I speak to Mr. O'Day, please? Hi, Mr. O'Day, it's Shannon Olivado from the Honolulu Police Commission. Can you hear us?
I can hear you perfectly, thank you.
Great, thank you for joining us. You are with us here at the Honolulu Police Commission meeting. Go ahead with your public testimony. And also just wanted to acknowledge receipt of the copy of your letter from OIP dated November 27th.
Thank you. The letter was the reason of me wanting to speak today. I just wanted to follow up with the chief and just make sure that 1, they've received the letter, and then 2, I'd like to know what they're doing to prepare themselves for when the proclamation expires.
Great, and that's a question you would like the chief's office to respond to?
Yes, please.
Because as you note, the letter OIP says that once the emergency order lifts, the 10 days would be starting, right? The clock would start giving HPD 10 days to respond. Is that what you're referencing?
Correct.
Okay. Because this is HPC's meeting, what we will do is request HPD or the chief's office to respond to your request, unless other commissioners have any follow-up questions for you. I'm looking around the room and online. I see no other questions for you, Mr. O'Day. Anything else that you would like us to address at this time?
That is it for today. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. We appreciate you keeping in touch with us, and we'll get your request over to the chief's office.
Thank you so much. Take care and have a great day.
You too. Take care. Thank you. The third public testifier by phone is Myron Burney, Dr. Myron Burney.
Hello.
Hi, may I speak to Dr. Burney, please?
Speaking. You
Hi.
got me.
Hi, Dr. Burney. My name is Shannon. I'm calling from the Honolulu Police Commission meeting. You're live with us. Go ahead with your
I
public
see you on
testimony.
YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So hold on until you're ready.
Oh, hi. We're ready for you, Dr. Burney. Go ahead.
Hello. Yeah.
Hi.
I can start talking now.
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, let me turn off this other sound. I'm getting confused.
Thank you.
Okay. So then I had a personal problem that's been going on since March 11th of this year, when a gentleman decided he needed to spit in my face. He was so angry. I wasn't fighting with him at all. In fact, I haven't been fighting with him at all. And I've had a series of TROs on him. I've got an active TRO on him now. And my problem is that a couple things. One, if I do a police emergency, call 911 police emergency, I'm connected to the operator rather quickly, but it takes a half hour or more on an emergency for the police to show up, which is really kind of slow because this is a gun freak. White supremacist, anti-Semitic gun freak. And he won't accept the TRO because he wants his guns back. So he's been fighting that constantly. And the problem is that the police, every time I call the police here, they start harassing me. I'm the victim. I have the TRO, and the police are aggressively against me. So the last time was just on the 29th, I called for an emergency assistance, and I still haven't gotten that emergency assistance from the 29th of December. Instead, the policeman came here. I wanted to show him the TRO, and he says, "Oh, I know what's going on around here." Then he starts yelling at me and telling me I'm the bad person. Then he tells me he's going to arrest me. If I call for police assistance, I'm going to get arrested. I'm the one that has the court-ordered protection. The other guy is the perpetrator. For some reason, your officers believe the perpetrator. Perpetrator says, "I didn't do anything." They believe him. He says, "I'm a felon. I'm doing all these crimes. I'm this all bad person. I need to go to jail. The police want to put me in jail. I've got the court order protection." I need that gentleman arrested every single time I call. You have a problem with TROs here, and the judge said it himself. I often find that things get escalated because there's a TRO. The police are escalating the crimes here. The police are emboldening the crimes here. The police are giving this guy permission to continue with his blatant crimes here. And now they want to arrest me. This is intolerable. This needs to be changed immediately. I've gotten good support at the legislature. The House called me back and said they were more motivated to do this than I was. And it's a simple solution. Anytime the police come out, there must be an arrest. They should immediately arrest, remove the respondent, male or female. If the respondent will learn rather quickly to not violate, this guy has gotten permission to violate.
Last time he was taunting me. Go ahead, call the police, He's telling his son, the judge is afraid of me. All I gotta do is show up, they don't do anything. He's a white supremacist, skinhead, fresh off the boat from someplace else. And the police want to arrest me?
Dr.
So I have a
Bernie,
this is in front of the police commission. I sent
Yes.
you guys a letter this morning, email. You may have it in front of you. I was asked not to mention any names.
okay, yeah, we don't have it in
because
front of
it's an
us
active thing.
yet.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Dr. Bernie, to interrupt you. We don't have your letter in front of us yet, but I did want to just ask if you have come to our office to file a complaint or initiate a complaint with
I've been
respect.
down there, I've been working with James Ewan,
Okay.
and he's told me, I think it was Patrick, somebody was assigned to me today.
Okay,
There's an investigator who's gonna take over, and it is in your ballpark. And it is also, I talked to one of the detectives, Arthur, at Professional Standards this morning also. And he was under the impression that the police officers are supposed to arrest.
okay. So,
And remove.
Dr. Bernie, because you have an active case before us, that is something that our office is looking at and we would have to assess based on the facts. But you coming here today provides us just some highlights as to what your situation is. I'm going to ask other commissioners if they have any follow-up questions for you. Anyone? At this time, no one else has other questions for you, Dr. Bernie, but because you do have that case before you,
I just wanted to add another sentence for
Okay.
another short minute. And this is, I'm not so interested in just getting this one officer in trouble. This is a policy-wide problem that's been happening to me. And it should be changed immediately in the policy level today. It should be changed today or tomorrow. Women are getting harmed, murdered. I'm getting totally harassed all the time. The guy threatened to shoot me and my girlfriend. So this needs to be a policy change. You cannot go around empowering and emboldening the perpetrators. You have to protect the court order. You have to protect the public safety. If there's a mistake, if there's an error, it's got to be on the error of safety, not on this error of more violence, more crime. If the police are going to make a mistake, make the mistake on the level of safety. If the gentleman or the woman has a problem and they don't think they should do this, that, or that, or they were harmed, they have their day in court. You could set up other parameters to double check if there's a big problem, if there's a red flag somewhere. But on a regular basis, this should be a policy within the police department to not violate the TRO. This cop, by taking Kupek's position, was acting as his agent. It is in violation of the TRO and should be arrested for violating the TRO.
Thank you, Dr. Bernie.
I need him arrested. I still haven't got, the guy refused to take my statement. I have the video evidence. He denied the video evidence. And I still haven't, this guy, I still need him arrested for all his crimes. So thank you for your time. Please talk to the police chief. See if she can change her mistakes today. There's no reason why anybody else should get harmed one more day because of ignorant policemen. They have to enforce the TRO 100% of the time.
Dr. Bernie, Commissioner Broderick has a question or comment for you.
Actually, Chair Alvaro, it's for you. I don't know the protocol when someone comes and testifies before us. Does the chief have an opportunity to respond to what's been shared in terms of the policy or not?
I think it would probably be on us to request that
I see.
response from the chief. Because his testimony is before our body, we would welcome, any response from the chief's office. But without more details, I don't know if, Chief McCarthy is able to respond today. But because this is an ongoing, another thing is that there's an ongoing complaint at our office. So with that, whatever we, however we resolve the situation, will definitely be going up to the chief's office for further review. But Dr. Bernie.
I'm sorry, the connection is rather poor on my side, and I'm not hearing what you folks are saying, but I do appreciate the police commenting on this and being involved, the police chief being involved as soon as possible. And I would appreciate her discussing this with you. And I don't see any reason why the police would not enforce the TRO. So then, I would welcome her to get involved with this today. If you can invite her down to the meeting, or if you can talk to her.
Thank you, Dr. Burney. We appreciate your
This
suggestions.
could be corrected immediately on her level. So there shouldn't be any more violations of TROs going around Hawaii here. I understand from local people that this is common. And I understand from the detective at Professional Standards that there's supposed to be an arrest every time. So I'm confused.
Yeah, I think every situation is different, Dr. Burney, but I really appreciate you sharing your situation with us.
I cannot tolerate this man not being arrested. I cannot tolerate the police coming to arrest me because I have a court-ordered writ of protection and they want to violate me. Then that can never happen again. This guy is going to go off in the next few days. He's a drug addict. He's going to go off again. I cannot have the police not arresting. I cannot have the police threatening me. I have to have the police bowing down to me, kissing my feet, saying, "How can I help you, sir?"
Thank you, Dr. Burney.
I can't have them threatening me at all ever again.
We appreciate your comments, and we'll be following up with you.
And I expect the police chief to get a hold of me personally as soon as possible at this phone number. And I want to follow up with you guys as soon as you got your chance. Sometime this week. This is intolerable. This shouldn't go on for another year, another day, or another week. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you have a good time and stay safe.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you, Dr. Burney. Later in the meeting, we want to discuss a response to Dr. Burney. We can. But moving on with public testimony, want to acknowledge two pieces of written testimony, one from a Miss Carla Allison and the second one from a Catherine Lee. Anyone have any comments with respect to Catherine Lee's testimony where she articulates some questions and some suggestions?
I do.
Vice Chair?
I think that we probably need to do a better job responding. And I think the way that we need to do this is probably send a note up to the chief's office, get a response on some of these letters. And, the answer can be, NA, because it's not applicable or something like that, or it can be asked and answered before, or it can be a response to the actual letter, whatever it pertains to, because we get so many different ones. So there's different answers. But I think we need to get that response back down to us, categorize these things, and then, we will have it on file should anybody, ask, hey, what did you do about it? What is the answer to my question? But I think we need to really start getting these things documented.
Yeah, I agree. I think this does raise a good point. I don't think we adequately keep records of, or in my mind anyway, I don't see us keeping an adequate record of what these complaints or comments or issues raised are. And I think we need to keep a better track of it. And we need to note if we take some action, or if we, because I think if something happened 2 or 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 meetings ago, we tend to forget what it was, and so we don't follow up, and that's not good enough. We need to do a better job.
Good. So maybe I can work with Erin and Jim to come up with maybe a log system where we're actually tracking not only the response that we give, but any feedback we request from the chief's office. And a lot of these we've been articulating to put into part of the evaluation. So we'll continue to do that as well, but thank you for the suggestion on both of these. We'll create a log or something where we're actually following up. Because we do respond to a lot of these testifiers in writing, but go ahead, Commissioner Akinaga.
Catherine Lee's testimony is more to us though. It's about testimony about the chief's eval and how we process it. So I think we can, want me to maybe ask for counsel? I mean, this is standard in terms of being able to offer testimonies in answer to your question about the chief's evaluation, to have input, the public can definitely have input and testify. This was more, I think, a question about process.
And also asking about an archive of testimony submitted prior, which is somewhat, it's not as comprehensive as the city council, but every minutes that we have on record includes any written testimony.
Right.
So that would be somewhat of an archive that we could inform her about,
Mhm.
the database the public can access for follow-up.
Yeah.
But we don't categorize the answers, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's something we need to do
Yeah.
for consistency.
Can I confirm that this was a repeat testifier? I know that we've received.
I think it's a repeat testifier, I don't
But
think it's
not-
repeat testimony.
Yeah, different issue.
Right. I recognize the name. So it's it is a different way of interacting with us, I think, because she didn't sign up to testify, she just read it.
Submitted a written.
Yeah, I understand the dilemma. I do think whether, like the next letter or the next testimony is more stuff we can ask the,
Chief to respond to.
more matters that we can ask the chief to respond to, but yeah, this one is,
Carla Ellison.
there's an ongoing, I guess the question, Chair, for leadership is if there's somebody who wants to engage in an ongoing dialogue about our processes or procedures, if you just want to reach out to the person and just have a conversation, or I can, or whatever, it's an odd way of interacting with somebody on a repeat basis if she's going to keep submitting testimony and have questions that we have to
That's a
figure
good
out
point, and
answer.
I think, it's CC's ACLU Hawaii, so I know, as part of our evaluation, we've actually identified them as an organization to reach out to talk further about.
I was talking more about this lead person, but yeah,
Okay.
I don't know.
So Commissioner Okanaga, just to make sure, I think I understand, are you suggesting that a commissioner actually reach out to her?
Well, with Chair's leadership or, permission or whatever. I know that at least one past chair would reach out and engage with people who continue to have, testimony and concern, just because it seemed very stilted and formal to try to testify and then write and then testify.
I support
and
what
then,
you're suggesting.
It's just a suggestion. And I don't know.
I mean, I think that's a good idea, but I don't think it takes away from the point she's making here.
No.
Which is, we don't do a very good job of documenting our follow-up and
That's my point.
perhaps even following up, I'm not sure. But yeah, I agree, it'd be a good idea to reach out to.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the other one, just because there's, seems more lawsuit oriented.
Yeah. Thank you for that discussion.
Thank you.
Any further comments with respect to public testimony? Thank you, Erin and Jim, for making sure we account for the public testifiers. Moving on, Chief of Police report. Chief McCarthy, Chief Takasaki Young, thank you for joining us.
Thanks. You know what, I think we'll start off with Major Lambert. He's got the presentation, then I can go into the report. Major
Okay,
Lambert.
great. Thank you. And for the viewers that are joining us online, we'll have this this PowerPoint available after the meeting if anybody needs it.
Good afternoon, Police Commission. I'm Major Mike Lambert, and Captain Goes. We are in charge of training. He's not here today. He's probably viewing online. What we wanted to do today is kind of share with you folks the direction that we're taking the training academy in, because it's the first building block of our recruits, and it's very important that we try to be progressive and move forward and not try to not assess our growth. So moving forward, what we want to do, the purpose of this proposal that I'm going to share with you guys today is to provide direction for the training academy for 2021 and beyond. The practicableness of the training we provide will be data-driven and incorporate audio, visual, and kinesthetic aspects to improve the quality of information retention. An emphasis will be placed on de-escalation and positive police encounters. So that's basically the foundation for what we're going to be doing. So I broke it up. I'm going to cover recruit improvement plan as well as our annual recall training. Two separate things, training recruits and then training our incumbents. So diving into our recruit improvement plan, these are the goals and objectives that we've made for our recruits. We're going to try to cut it up between need to know and good to know. The reasoning for that is there's a lot of things that officers need to be able to understand very quickly. And then there's other things that are a little more obscure in our job that not necessarily do we have to know off the top of our head, but we should be able to access it, either through online or written material. We want to put an emphasis again on de-escalation prior to use of force. We want to reorganize our modules, and I'll show a slide of it, what it looks like into academic and functional stages instead of just one hodgepodge. We're immediately creating 250 plus standardized scenarios. The reason why we want to go into standardized scenarios is for the fact of better tracking and growth of a recruit. Kind of the way it works.
Lambert, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but would it be possible for you to remove your mask, or maybe just because it's more muffled? I'm sorry if that's safe for you to do that.
No, I'm fine with that, sorry. So we want to incorporate scenario-based training for all modules. The reason why we want to go with scenario-based training is that we want to move in a more practical type of education. Right now, we discuss a lot of things, but we don't actually necessarily do practical application to the best of our ability. So we want to move in standardized scenario training. So what happens is that as a recruit progresses through recruit school, we can kind of see what areas they're failing on. And not only is it the recruit, it could be us as instructors. So by able to standardize scenarios and see where there's faults, we can improve training. We want to improve basic and interpersonal communication skills of recruits. It sounds like, it's one of those things where you hear and it's like, yeah, wouldn't you do that? But what happens is that as times change, as communities change, as our youth that become policemen change, the way that we talk to each other because of social media and other electronic forms is not the way that it used to be. So sometimes especially our younger officers, they don't necessarily communicate as friendly as we'd like. A lot of that, again, just has to do with the times, right? Very, very informal, very straight to the point, very texty type communication, and it can turn people off. So we want to improve that. We want to make the practical training focus on creating road-ready officers. So what we want to do is make sure that the training is practical for someone who's going to serve the community, because most recruits, that's what they're going to do. They're going to go right out to the front of the line, and they're going to serve the community. We need to make sure they're ready for that. The more intricate training that comes with specialization can come on the job later in their career. But we really want to make sure that the product that we're putting out to the community is very effective, very efficient. We want to identify instructors that have experience and emulate department goals. So just like anything else, right, our trainers need to be the best of the best. And what we want to do is identify people within our ranks now that best emulate what we hope for in future officers. It's one of those steel build steel kind of a thing. And one of the things that we've sent out is a review for a training development survey to our professional standards office, patrol, and CID to address areas of concern. And it's something that we want to do regularly. So for example, for professional standards office, kind of the things that you guys deal with conduct and other behavior, we want to try to make sure that we are identifying it at a training level so that hopefully as years go on, we can kind of address the behavior up front instead of trying to correct it afterwards. So it's just things that we want to look at. For patrol, the type of things that aren't occurring or things that can be improved. And from our detectives from our criminal investigations division is making sure that the quality of the reports that get to them are usable so that we can have successful prosecution. So it's all these little pieces that we want to constantly get development surveys done so that we make sure that the training academy is very practical in what we're teaching, right? It's not just pie in the sky stuff. So this is kind of what we're going to do with the need to know, good to know, right? So it's going to be data driven. And what we've done is we asked our information technology division to provide me with the top 20 written report types and then the top 20 arrest types. Based on those data, we're going to formulate our curriculum around that, meaning that these officers need to know how to investigate and how to appropriately act in these types of scenarios because they are very likely to encounter it once they graduate. We're going to focus the standardized scenarios on the data from the prior year. So it's not just we're going to do it this year and then that's what we do forever. It's every year we're going to constantly analyze what are the top 20 situations officers are encountering and making sure that we're very efficient in how we interact during that type of call. So we are going to bring back closed book exams for need to know information that emphasize quick recognition of top reports and arrest types. Because we're moving into a more scenario-based academy, it's very important that these officers have a good working knowledge of things that they'll encounter on a regular basis. Little background on that is when I came in is that it was just this obscure amount of knowledge that we needed to know, right? There was as much emphasis as gambling aboard ships, which I'll probably never make a case for, as there was for robbery first, which we make, right? So what we want to do is separate that and say, you know what, you guys really need to understand what robberies are, what UMVs are, or breaking into vehicles rather. And then these kind of obscure laws, we need to let you guys know that they exist and teach you guys how to find them in the HRS in the rare event you guys do encounter that type of case. So that's the good to know, need to know. All test scenarios will be based on need to know. So in other words, we're not going to try to trick the recruits into things that is not practical to what they're going to experience on the road. So moving into the good to know, it'll be a light emphasis on crimes that are unlikely to be applied by a patrol officer. Materials will be non-fail open book quizzes because, again, what we want to do is just have them be aware the information exists and then go ahead and quiz them on it to make sure that they know within the system, within the HRS, where the information exists, and they're not going to be included in our standard scenario test. So this is not unique to Honolulu. Actually, during the IACP conference that was just a few months ago, they actually said that non-fail quizzes is a good way to reinforce to a recruit what is stuff you need to know and what is stuff that is good to know, right? And again, by doing this, we can reinforce better behavior and better accuracy in more likely cases. So one of the big things we're doing is we're going to kind of change the model of the way that the training is done. So current model at the top of that presentation is the more lime green is academia blocks, the darker green is the functional stage. And as it currently stands, it's kind of a hodgepodge. So at the very end of the academy, maybe the 24th, 25th week, if a recruit for some reason fails out, they go back to the beginning, which means that that's a lot of training hours that need to be, I hate to use the word wasted, but they're going to go through the whole thing again, right? What we want to do is be a little more efficient, break it up into academia and functional. And as you guys can see here, the reason for that is that I don't think that we should be teaching members of the public that come into the academy high risk or dangerous techniques that we are going to teach in the functional stage unless they can understand search and seizure, they can understand the laws, and they can understand how it's applied, right? So that's why in the academia phase, that's where they're going to learn all that. Search and seizure, ethics, all this good stuff, right? Once they pass the academia stage, they move on to the functional, right? And at that point, it's a little more high speed. That's where we're going to show higher levels of control and arrest, higher risk tactics, things that they should be able to apply more effectively because of the academia stage.
Major Lambert, can I just request that you explain what those blocks represent? I think you want to say they mean weeks, and then if you could just say what FTEP is, just for the public's information, please.
Okay, my apologies. So it's just a rendering. The actual weeks we're going to be working on, so the academia stage might be about 13 to 14 weeks, followed by a functional of about same give or take 13 weeks or so. And then FTEP is a field training evaluation program. So after they pass through, they get the classroom knowledge, so to speak, of what it takes to be a police officer. They move on to the field training. And I'll go ahead and dive into a little more on that in a further slide. But that's kind of how it works, is that we teach them how to be officers in a controlled environment, and then we introduce them to real world training within our field training and evaluation program. The reason why we want to break it up like this too is that we are now going to move into accepting laterals. So in order to better integrate our lateral, if we break it up to this format with academia and functional, we don't have to create a new academy. One of the earlier ideas was that the laterals would basically run their own recruit school. But we're dealing with shortages. We may not have the staff, so it's better if we just integrate it. We don't need any additional trainers to take on laterals with this model. With the previous model, we would have to create a new academy, which would require a whole slew of instructors. So it's a lot more efficient in this manner. Down the road, once we get this out, the academia and functional stages could even be broken down even more granularly, so that just like college, right? Just because you fail a class doesn't mean you'll never get your degree. It's just something that you'll have to cycle through again. And as we break it up a little more, that opportunity exists. Under the current model, it's 26 weeks or nothing. And again, there can be a lot of wasted training hours within that. So diving into the field training evaluation program, what we're proposing as a slight change. Currently we do, they call it 3-3-3, which is 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks with a different field training officer. What we're going to propose moving forward is a 4-week program, but we're proposing a direct solo officer. Right now we're dealing with shortages, and we're not able to fill beats. So by doing a direct solo officer program, we can fill beats a lot quicker, because basically once they finish their cycle of training, they can go ahead and service the community like a standard officer does. So the first phase they'll come through is 4 weeks. They'll move on to the second phase. After the second phase, so basically on the 8th week, they could go ahead and fill a beat, given that they are proficient. If they need a little more time to develop, then they'll go on to the third phase, at which point then they would stay there. The reason why we want to go with this direct solo officer is we want to create better mentorship within the ranks. Kind of how it works now is that you go to field training, you pass through a gauntlet of officers, and then you kind of randomly end up in wherever the department needs you. But then you may have never worked with those people before. They don't know anything about you, and not necessarily is the type of mentorship that we're looking for is created. Now, for example, this direct solo officer model that we have here, they stay in their last phase. So if, say, for example, you're on phase 3, you're in District 1, you'll stay in District 1, which means that your FTO, your trainer, now becomes your beat partner. I believe that type of relationship will create better mentorship, because if you just trained me a week ago, I'm your product. I'm in your face. If I'm deficient, we believe that the FTO would go ahead and continue that mentorship versus you just came to my district, I know nothing about you, and we'll help you the best we can, but there's not that type of perpetual mentorship that's occurring. So I think we're going to see, I'm confident that it would be a model that will work a little better than what we currently have. Before I move on to the annual recall training, you guys have any questions on the training, on the recruit side of that?
Yes, I think Commissioner Perry does.
Yeah, I was wondering, I see you have changed from you're now going to closed book on the academic training. Is that a change? You were open book on that before, is that correct?
Right, so we did have open book. So, just like anything else, we're trying to reformulate the way we train. We're trying to be more appropriate for the time. So we did go to an open book training for the purposes of critical thinking. Trying to have people think more and be more proficient with the information and the tools that are available to them. Because we're moving into a scenario-based training, we're bringing back some of the closed book stuff because we need them to have a little bit of memory recall for the sake of efficiency. So like I said, just kind of like tuning a guitar, right? Sometimes you tighten it a little too far and you got to kind of let it out a little until you get the right sound. So, we were totally closed book, we were totally open book, and now we're kind of finding this blended approach of where some will be closed book, some will be open book based on the necessity of the information.
Okay, so the issue with the open book was that you thought people weren't sort of keeping the information or understanding it fully. They would be able to go and resource it as opposed to knowing it themselves.
Correct. So there was a slight fear that they may not be able to recall that information as quickly as they should.
Okay, all right, that's good. Thank you.
So I'll move on to any other questions? I'll move on to the recall training. Oh, I think Commissioner Chin has see him flagging us down.
Is it okay if I ask a question, Chair?
Of course, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Major Lambert. Thanks a lot for the presentation so far. And maybe the other way to ask the question is because I can see that you guys are reworking, how you are going to best be able to train the recruits. And honestly, I think that's all any of us as citizens can ever ask for, because, what we want to have is a department that is responsive, that takes input, that learns from, where it's at, and figures always is looking for ways to improve, and then comes up with something new. I don't feel like any of us are academic experts, so we're not, especially police academy experts. So we're not really in a good position to be able to say, what are the pros and cons and what's better or not. We just want to know that you guys are, taking in the input from the sources where you need to hear and just trying to make improvements. So maybe one simple question that I have about all this is it basically the same amount of time? Like is there anything about this new training program that is somehow putting the recruits through less training? I mean, what I'm hearing is that it's just different kinds of training. It's not, it's more effective training, but it's not that it's less time, or is it?
No, so what we want to do is we actually want to utilize the time we have, which is about a little over 1,000 hours of training,
Right.
and just try to take that amount of time and just be more efficient, meaning that we make better use of that time. So the intention is not to extend or shorten the academy, it's just to make it more practical and then make it more efficient.
Thank you for your answer.
But you are shortening the time for laterals, right?
Yeah, so laterals that they were always meant to have, because the benefit of taking a lateral is that they already come pre-trained to an extent. So that was always going to be a shorter amount of time. So that academy, the goal was 12 to 13 weeks. A lot of times officers, based on their application, would have had a lot of the functional stuff, how to fire a gun, how to drive a vehicle safely. But what we got to do is make sure that they understand the laws here, and especially when it comes to search and seizure. Ninth Circuit is very different from any other circuit. So having them understand that.
So previously, a lateral transfer had to go through the entire program?
Yes, exactly. So previously they did the 26 weeks, and again, they come pretty well trained. So it was a kind of a waste. I hate to use that word, but it was a waste of training blocks for someone that could easily come and serve the community a lot quicker. So we move on to the recall training improvement plan. So what we want to do is we want to identify trends locally and nationally to guide priority of training, right? We don't always want to wait for the legislature or the council or the commission to tell us have we looked into this, have we looked into that. The training academy is going to for certain aspects of the department, is going to become the research and development group. And we're constantly going to be assessing for growth, things that are happening, again, locally and nationally. To make sure that we're on par and that we have as much information as possible to guide our training year after year. Again, we're going to put an emphasis on de-escalation prior to use of force. And, it sounds good. Everybody wonders, how are you actually going to do that, right? The reality is it's going to take some reprogramming, especially for incumbents, right? When I came in, I was trained that anything that I did wrong resulted in death, right? But is that true? Probably not, right? So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and retrain our recruits, retrain our incumbents to really understand how much danger they're really in. So what I'm not proposing to do is anything that would cause more risk to officers. Really what it is just creating better time and little more patience before we have to use our use of force, right? So that's basically the challenge I have as a major, is to how do I take incumbents who have this training and how do I integrate it with future methods and future models, right? And I'm confident that we can incorporate that. So we want to, again, to move on that, we want to incorporate scenario-based training for all modules. We want to make everything real. We don't want to just theorize all the time. We want to improve basic and interpersonal communication skills of incumbents. Again, it's an objective of our recruits, right? We need to make sure that our incumbents are on the same page. We want to tailor the ART, our annual recall training modules, to be relevant by rank, meaning that we want to develop our leaders more. And I'll go ahead and kind of show you guys what I mean by that in the next slide. And we want to have leadership models, development modules for sergeants and above, because leadership is not something we're born with. Some people have better basic skills for leadership, but it's not something that you can just come up with on your own. Some people need guidance. So, for example, what I mean by that is we want to teach leadership skills, not just what our policies tell us, not just what sounds good. It's literally tried and true education, college level courses that help build someone in their journey to become a good leader, right? We want to, again, review the training development surveys to make sure that our recall training is relevant and making sure that we're addressing trends that we're seeing that negatively impact our ability to serve the community. So, oops, I think I hit the wrong button. Okay, so this is what the ART, when I talk about making it structured to relevant by rank, is that the modules, let's say for our pursuits, right? There's going to be a keynote portion of it where we talk about everything that anybody needs to know about pursuits in general knowledge. And then we're going to go ahead and break out the groups in breakout sessions to be officers and corporals because they're more likely to be engaged in the pursuit. Sergeants and above, they'll be supervising the pursuit. So we're going to have two different types of information that need to be shared. What we do is once that specific information is shared, we're going to come back and have a joint scenario utilizing the things that were in the breakout session. So what this does is it allows us to be more efficient in our use of time. So for example, how it works now is that we'll cover a module top to bottom, and it'll go through the officers portion, which means the sergeants, it's kind of not relevant. And then of course it'll progress down to the supervisors where it's not really, the officers kind of phase out because it's not really for them. So instead of wasting that time on hearing information that's not relevant to their rank, we're going to break them out and then utilize that extra time for an actual scenario. So for example, we recently acquired a shoot simulator, right? And how we'd integrate that into a recall training is that we get the keynote information, right? All risk assessment and utilizing force when it comes to firing a gun. We're going to break out corporal and officers, letting them know and supervisors know what they need to know as far as a critical incident. We're going to bring them back together. Corporals and officers will be involved in the acting of the shoot simulator. Supervisors will then come in and try to make sure that we're managing the scene and the critical incident appropriately to make sure that we are better engaging in that type of high-risk situation. So again, all modules will have that type of format. This is the timeline we want to develop for recall training is we want to develop e-classroom with the COVID pandemic. We have to be prepared to be like colleges and go ahead and train online. We're going to, again, develop our standardized scenarios we're restructuring the modules. And as you can see with the 197 recruit class, we want to look at the direct solo officer program. And the 199th is where you guys are going to start to see some changes into the good to know, need to know structure. And befitting of the 200 Recruit Academy, you guys are going to see that academia functional. And it's going to basically be a pretty revamped academy from years past. For recall training, straightforward, same things, relevant rank relevant training, our training simulators, and again, constant assessment and planning at the end of the year to be appropriate for the following year. Question?
Commissioner Broderick.
Major Lambert, thanks so much for the presentation. I want to go back to the page that's entitled Goals and Objectives for Recall Training, and specifically the bullet that says emphasis placed on de-escalation prior to use of force. So are you going to increase the amount of training devoted to de-escalation?
Absolutely, because de-escalation, what we confuse it with early on is verbal command, right? Verbal commands are very different from de-escalation. So we would say, oh, we always de-escalate. That's not really true. We give a lot of verbal commands. We don't de-escalate. De-escalate is assessing the situation, right? Taking your knowledge of behavioral health issues and then applying them to someone in crisis. Nationally, the reason why there's a biggest divide and why it's so contentious with law enforcement is that as law enforcement, we need to be able to recognize a criminal engagement and a crisis engagement. Criminal engagement means someone has broken the law and they need to comply with the arrest. Crisis engagement means someone who has a behavioral health issue has not broken the law, or if they have, it's something that would be considered low ranking, like park closure, the non-victim crimes, victimless crimes, so to speak, and being appropriate when you address the two. Right now, we kind of apply de-escalation broad stroke to all scenarios, right? So we got to be appropriate and try to say, okay, for somebody that's robbed someone, right, they need to comply with the arrest. We're going to be as professional as possible, but that arrest needs to be effective. Someone in crisis feels suicidal or they're high, we need to be able to recognize that they haven't broken the law, they need crisis intervention, and we need to be able to try our best to de-escalate that person the best we can. And that, again, that's something that we're going to integrate at the recall training level as well as the recruit level.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vice Chair Gibson.
Thank you, thank you. First of all, from all of us, Major Lambert, congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you, sir.
In two quick questions. How many recruits are you looking at this year that you think that we'll have total? Second of all, what do you think the pass-fail rate will be? And third, is it a plus-up, do you think, with the number of retirements we have this year, because we have quite a bit? And then the second question is, you said it well, leadership, people are not born, not everybody's born a leader, right? So there's tests that we take. Some people test very, very well. But how is your team going to look at leaders, whether they're corporal sergeants, lieutenants, or whatever, and say this person is a leader, this person we're going to promote? I know it's not just a pass, fail, and a test, but what are the other criteria that you're looking at is what I think I would like to know.
Okay, so for the first question, right now we're slated up to 58 for the January class. The numbers beyond that will be determined based on the screening from HRD. So I don't believe we have the numbers projected.
Commissioner, I would say if we're gonna ballpark it for the calendar year of 2020, so we'll probably be looking at anywhere from, I would say, a range of 160 to 200 recruits being hired for, say, 4 classes of 2020. And like I said, that is hopeful for non-budgetary restrictions. Now, regarding the question, I think you had, is it gonna be a plus or minus regarding our staffing? That was one of your questions.
Yes.
So I believe that what has been successful for us on an offshoot is that the Human Resources Division, the department, was able to, in conjunction with the city's Department of Human Resources, obtain a delegation agreement that allows our HPD Human Resources Division to recruit and process applicants on our own. And because of that, we've been able to, I believe, increase the amount of recruits we're being hiring per class. Per se, prior to the delegation agreement, maybe we're hiring on average mid to low 30s. And I think since the delegation agreement, in which the first class we hired with it was probably late 2018, we've been averaging probably 40 to, actually pre-COVID was mid 40s to 50s. I think once we hit COVID, now we're around the range of 40 to 50. So to say a plus minus average, I would say last year, we probably averaged off the top of my, or average, we probably had 80 to 90 retirements or so. So this year, with the amount of numbers coming out, we're hopeful that we'll come out in a positive result. But like anything else, filling vacancies does take time. So just to let you know, we had about 40 to the mid 40s that just retired solely in December. That's not an anomaly. But our next transfer movement that'll be scheduled probably for March will probably fill the 40 vacancies back. So it's kind of evening out, as you can see, but throughout the year, we're hopeful with our current recruitment process and Major Lambert's direction in a more efficient training that we'll be able to successfully not graduate recruits, but then to pass the field training evaluation program.
Thank you.
And then to your second question, sir, as far as the developing the leadership, we want to go ahead and offer the classes because, and then actually most times when you offer these type of courses, you'll begin to recognize people that, one, want to be a leader, right? And two, that have the aptitude to be leaders. So what we want to do is cultivate, again, mentorship is huge, succession planning is huge. And from day one, from the training academy, we're going to start to identify people that have that ability to lead or have that want. Because a lot of people, just like with basketball, right? Some people have that natural skill, some people have to work really hard at it. It doesn't mean that either one is better when they play basketball, right? It's just some people need a little more work, some don't. It's just a matter of what is the want of the individual. So we want to make it very easy. Kind of how it stands now is you got to get a little lucky. You got to be assigned to a commander. Fortunately for me, I actually had both chiefs I was able to work for and I was mentored. Not necessarily is that true for everyone. So what we want to do is try to create better mentorship within the department so that more people have the opportunity to, perhaps stand here one day and give a presentation. So we want to make it easier to get better as far as leadership goes.
Thank you, Major.
Thank you. Commissioner Okinaga?
Thank you very much, Major, for the presentation. Very clear and hopeful for sure. I can't imagine that maybe you can tell me, but the training is not just done by in-house personnel. You're probably obtaining expertise from different.
Yes, so definitely for the crisis intervention and the behavioral health, we actually for the crisis intervention teams, which we already have, and we're gonna kind of roll that into the behavioral health portion of the training academy. We actually have psychiatrists, psychologists, field experts in behavioral health that actually help guide our training. Because again, right, that's not really our lane, right? There's somebody else has that specialty. That doesn't mean it's beyond our scope to understand, right? So we're gonna bring in professionals. I'm gonna reach out. We have a couple partners that we identified to the HELP program that we have strong partnerships with that have already said that they're more than willing to help improve the department in regards to behavioral health recognition. So we're gonna definitely bring in experts. We're also gonna seek experts. Again, we have budgetary restrictions, but there are things that we can do in kind to offer services. For example, what we do in the field, right, is that we may provide a training to like I provided a training to the medical school in regards to de-escalation. And what they did is they provide us training in regards to wound care and stuff like that. So there's ways to get around spending money, right? If we're willing to cooperate with our partners.
All pursuant to legal intergovernmental agreements.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So-
Of course. Nothing that would
Just
fall
kidding.
into that category.
So I guess one suggestion maybe, because I was thinking that, yeah, absolutely these types of experts, but your in-house city experts, namely your corp counsel, who have litigated your cases, and prosecutors who are perhaps critical of the police's ability to work up cases, to come in and do training on a more, I'm sure that's done already. I don't know in what capacity, but maybe systematizing that in a more repeat way, so it's not depends on which prosecutor comes in, or systematizing the curricula, I guess, based on real cases.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great idea, and it's something that we do on a smaller level, but it's something like you said that we can create system-wide that is more consistent. So thank you for that suggestion.
Dwayne Pang is your first volunteer.
Commissioner Chin, thanks. Go ahead.
Hey, Major Lambert, I wanted to applaud this proposal in trying to identify trends locally and nationally to be able to incorporate into the training. And I would just encourage your public information folks to make sure that gets out to the public, as that kind of training is implemented, to the officers all throughout the department. I think that's going to really help the public feel like that the police department is addressing trends that are occurring right now. So things that I picked up on were like trying to put an emphasis on de-escalation, positive police interactions. Those are trends. And those are things that are happening right now. So I think that's really great that the department is potentially going to be proposing this. And then the other thing I just heard you say to Commissioner Okinaga was just even being able to look at behavior health issues and dealing with the mentally ill. I think that's something else that is a trend that either me as a commission member or just when I was out there in the public would hear that's an issue that's going on. And I suppose the other suggestion that I'd make that I didn't see explicitly in these goals and objectives, but like a trend would be thinking about unconscious racial bias. I know that obviously Hawaii is different from the rest of the mainland, but I think that there's ways that Hawaii could be able to think about or be able to challenge all the officers to be able to think about their own unconscious biases and to be able to address those whenever they interact with people. And I think if that kind of training is talked about with the public, if the Sarah Yoros of the department are then able to let the public know that the police are being trained on these things, I think that's going to make a big difference. What approval do you need for this proposal to go forward?
Basically, it's just agreed upon by the chiefs, and of course, support from the commission is always great too, so that we can all public and, input is that this is a good direction for the department. In regards to your implicit-based training, we actually already have it. It's online, but it's something that as we understand more and more training is available, we want to integrate it year after year to ensure that we're in line with, again, understanding things that may conflict with our own decision-making.
Right. Well, this is what we want. I mean, we don't want to be on the tail end always complaining about, why don't you guys do this or why don't you guys do that? It's a lot better to talk about the ways that the people who are coming in or the people who are still in the department are being trained. So thank you.
Commissioner Chin, just to add to that, the proposals are being implemented with the 199th recruit class, which starts later this month, and maybe not fully, but definitely with the following 200th class later this year.
Thank you. I had a couple comments. Just to piggyback on Commissioner Chin's comment with respect to the bias profiling and recognizing that training needs to be incorporated. I just wanted to note and compliment the policy number 1.12 amendment that was just implemented that notes that bias-based profiling would be inclusive or included in basic recruit training and ATR. So I just wanted to point that out, that it appears that the department is moving forward in recognizing changes that not only may be trending but important to the community as we go forward. So just wanting to note that. Couple questions with respect to the HPC audit or HPD audit, and it noted about training not identifying or the recommendation that it could improve training by using reporting and evaluating key data from misconduct and complaint information. Wondering if you plan to incorporate that or if that would be one of the focus areas in the need to know. Because based on just watching the MLA City Council meeting, it appears that they're concerned with the back end, right? Those cases that come before them in settlement on how to avoid that. So just wondering how the department is working towards identifying those, informing new recruits about actual incidents that happened and how to avoid and correct that type of behavior within the department.
Okay, so actually, did you want to take that?
Yeah, so Commissioner Olivado, I know one of, in recent things that the Chief Batter mentioned about the audit is we recently amended or put an additional section to that policy 5.01 or included a annual review of misconduct in issues, administrative and criminal. It's spearheaded by the commander of PSO with other divisional elements. And what the purpose of it is for the department's management analysts to draw upon the data that we have, and along with the commanders is take a look into the incidents and what can we do to help better mitigate these things. I believe currently some of the current classes that the recruit classes do have are standards of conduct classes. And as a former commander of the Professional Standards Office, my duties was to go down and explain to them not just what the standards of conduct means, but because of the experience I've had, I would kind of give them past examples or cases that would pertain to a violation of those standards of conduct. So it wasn't where we would just read to them the sections, but explain to them certain sections and how we had past incidents of this and what are the repercussions, not just for the individual officer, but for the department as a whole.
In addition to that, we're looking at ways already. For the past few months, we've been reviewing and talking about our early recognition program with the commanders and recognition of employees. Monthly report is due on that. We've revamped that from a template type of system to an individual analysis by the commander for his employees. And we're looking at other ways and training to get to everybody so that all supervisory personnel can hopefully see signs early on and prevent it so that it doesn't even get there. But then again, you got to realize that's an intangible. We could never measure how many misconduct we may have prevented or not.
Right. Any other questions for Major Lambert? I think that would wrap up the questions for you, Major Lambert.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I have to apologize. We actually asked him to keep his mask on because we weren't sure where he was this past weekend.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
I got a couple of things on, for the chief's report. Sorry, chief is on leave, so, she's at home enjoying herself while we're here. I did want to note that over the past few weeks, we did experience a larger than normal call volume over the New Year's Eve, day. And not attributed to any one thing. We didn't receive any more violent crime calls or any more fireworks calls. It was just a general increase overall in a call volume island-wide, no one particular district or area. So that accounted for a lot, our guys were a lot more busy than they were in normal past years. I do want to point one thing that Commissioner Gibson talked about the retirements, and Chief Young talked about it, but this year's retirements weren't any higher than normal over the past 5 years. In 2017, we saw a spike, but that was an anticipated spike. Whenever you get a changeover in leadership, that was the first year Chief Ballard took over. You see the outgoing administration, normally the deputy chiefs and the senior chiefs, they leave to make room for the new chief and her staff to come on in. But this year was I think it was actually slightly lower than last year. We have a recognition ceremony for our new promotees on January 21st. Again, it'll be done remotely. We'll have limited amount of people in person here for the recognition, and it'll be broadcast later for friends and family people to view that. I don't have anything else for the chief's public report unless you have questions for me.
Question, yes, please.
Chief, you mentioned New Year's Eve. I read a letter to the editor. I couldn't really make sense of it. It said that in the period prior to New Year's, there have been 2,000 complaints to the police, but only 18 citations. I don't know if you saw that, and if so, is that accurate?
The fireworks related?
Yeah, fireworks related.
Fireworks related. There were about 2,000 complaints, but there were more citations than that. There were about, I think, a little bit more than that. We're actually tracking it a new and different way this year. Total, we issued roughly about 50 citations and arrests this year for fireworks and confiscated about 1,500 pounds in total. We're faced with the same problems we face every year. Those numbers compare not to last year. Last year we had a higher amount of enforcement and seizures, but compared to years prior, so we're about on par. We're faced with the same problems again. You know, we need to view the offense, or we need people to come out and make statements or provide video of the offense so we can identify the person and get the admissible evidence into court. And, you know, a lot of these people, for a lot of reasons, and some of them very valid, don't want to come forward. So we get a lot of anonymous complaints where, you know, an aerial just went off in my neighborhood. Well, of course, you respond and you drive there, and the aerial's not going off anymore, and there's nobody out in their front yard using it. What we did see a lot of people do actually light arrows in the street, run back and pick them up and take them back to their property before they set the next one off. So it's just the same old problem. It's a problem for enforcement. We need to see, or we need to have that report of the violator to identify them and have that evidence. So
okay, so that ratio of approximately 2,000 complaints to 50 citations, that's not unusual.
That's in line with previous years, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We did have a higher than normal call volume though, like I said, and that included an increase in fireworks related calls as well.
Thank you.
But I think, Chief, what's astonishing is that when close to midnight, it was just like, it was going off. So the criticism is, you know, what is HPD doing about it, or what can HPD do about it, or what is the root of the issue? And it's the fact that it's coming to the island, right? I mean, what can HPD do?
Good question. I mean, we do as much as we can, but we can only do so much. We can't search cargo containers. We can't search mail parcels. We have to rely on a small group of individuals that do that. Federal postal authorities handle the mail. The cargo is, I mean, you gotta think of the millions of tons that come into the state of Hawaii daily or weekly, monthly. We can't come anywhere near that, inspecting any of that, and it's sealed in containers. So I mean, everybody talks about it, and I see that analogy drawn, and I worked narcotics for years in a smuggling unit. It's not that easy to detect. Everybody makes it sound like, oh, if we can get fireworks in, we can get elephants in. Well, that's true, but you just can't, we don't have enough personnel. We have to rely on people reporting to us. Some of that 1,500 pounds that was seized does not include amounts that were seized earlier that were detected in mail shipments that were delivered to individuals where arrests were made and fireworks seized, and records of previous fireworks shipments being found during that investigation. So it's really difficult. What I did see this year was, and perhaps someone said it, that it was due to the lack of public fireworks displays, but on the freeways I saw videos where people were parked on both sides of the freeway, parked out, walking outside their cars, watching the so-called public fireworks show from the residential areas. Again, we had an increased call. Normally there's a lull about midnight. I had the misfortune of having to call and talk to our dispatch about midnight, a little after. And normally where there's that lull, they said this year they didn't see the lull. The calls were coming in that fast pace all night long, and especially during that midnight time. So it's hard. Give you an idea, we sent out a night enforcement unit from traffic that included 9 officers and 2 sergeants. All 9 ended up with drunk driving arrests, as well as issuing nearly over 100 citations just for traffic offenses, because we kind of anticipated this thing. We tried to get to the freeways, the overpasses, because we expected it, and we just couldn't because of the other calls. So, you know, patrol, the priority for services to handle those calls, especially the priority 1 calls. Unfortunately, fireworks violation is not a priority 1 call because it doesn't involve life or death. Unless it does, you know, it's an injury or someone's using it as a weapon, but we got those other calls that we have to respond to first. So by the time we get to those, we're back to these again, and you know, it's kind of, we're chasing our tail in a sense.
Chief, what happens to the fireworks that are confiscated?
That's a whole nother problem itself. Last year when we seized a large amount, we spent, in fact, the legislature actually gave us extra money. It's very costly to dispose of it. We have to store it first of all. And remember, fireworks are explosive, so the storage of it is a danger in and of itself. And then the disposal, again, is a problem. We can't just, you know, you see movies where they just go over there and light them off, or they have to be destroyed in a certain manner according to law and according to safety rules. So all of them are destroyed by our bomb techs at a location that is approved, and it just takes time to do it and has to be done in a proper way. And it's very costly to store and to dispose of. A couple of years, just to give you an idea, when we did have why the stats were up last year is we just happened to come across some people who were delivering the fireworks at the time. So we seized a van load and another large load. We actually talked about trying to ship them out of the state to be destroyed, but we found out that we couldn't. We had to destroy them here. So it took time. The bomb techs from the Specialized Service Division are the ones that handle oversee the storage and the destruction of it.
Any other questions? I had a question regarding your retirement comment, Chief.
Yes.
I did hear the report from the state ERS that there was record number of retirements, I think 1,000, and that was only within the tail end of the year. But with respect to the retirements within the department, is there a breakdown of like what ranks are retiring, or like what years of service they have, just so we can see kind of what we're losing? Is it more the, you know, folks that are already reached their retirement age or attain the years, or is it more just newer guys, or, you know?
No, for us to retire, it depends. There's 2 brackets, right? The old timers, guys like me, we can go out at 25 years with no age penalty. the younger officers have to do 30 years and go out with no less than 55 years of age. So it's a combination. We're kind of top heavy. There's about a third of the department that are what you could say older by law enforcement standards that have more than 30 years of service. And we're seeing some of these guys, and even more, we basically max out at 32 years of service with 80% of their pay being calculated. And that's where the guys tend to stay and go after that. But there was a mix. We could probably put together the numbers, but they're not readily available. But there was a mix, a fair mix of various degrees of officers. We expected a lot more to go because of the current situation with law enforcement and the pending economy, but we're surprised that the numbers weren't any higher than previous years, and we're right on par.
How many, I didn't catch, how many did you say were this year for the end of 20?
It was,
About approximately?
80 to 80.
it was somewhere between 80 and 85, which is on par with the last 5 years. The only exception being 2017, when Chief Ballard first took over. Like I said, that number was higher, and we normally see that whenever a new chief comes in. You know, some of the deputies normally leave. That's normal. Some of the assistants leave, and then some of the others that were staying on as a loyalty factor to that chief also tend to leave. So, and that number was about 95 or so, between 95 and 100.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for correcting that. I appreciate it.
Sure, no, I just thought I'd add in some info.
Other question by Commissioner Perry?
Just wondering if there's any progress on the investigation into the overtime abuses.
I'm gonna let Deputy Chief Takasaki Young answer that. He's in charge of that.
And Commissioner Perry, we're still on the same page. We're still completing the audit. We hope to complete it as soon as we can. I'm hopeful. I know Chief Ballard said 6 months, and that started from, I believe, around November or so. So I'm hopeful that we can finish it up within the next, by the end of, January, by the end of February or so.
Yeah.
In terms of the audit, like I said, the sheer amount of records that we have to go through. So we're hopeful. It's just diligent efforts. It's not something we want to do hastily. So it's something we want to make sure that we're going through each records to determine the breadth and scope of the audit.
And does that affect the retirement pay for some of the officers involved? The overtime, I mean. Yeah.
The overtime. Oh, can you repeat the question one more time, Commissioner Perry? Sorry.
So, does that affect the retirement income of the officers if they got an excessive amount of overtime in one of the last 3 years?
So I believe if you were hired from July 1st, 2012 and after, I believe your overtime is not included into your high 3 calculation. Anybody that was hired previous to that July 1st, 2012, I want to say it's incorporated into what they call your high 3.
Just to add one thing to that, even if they make the higher amount, the dollar amount, 12.5% of those prior to 2012, 12.5% of their gross pay is deducted and contributed to the retirement system. After that, I think it's 13.5% of their gross pay, and it does not include the overtime for their retirement. So they do contribute on a percentage basis.
Okay.
But what was good to hear was that Chief said that that I think you guys are looking into or in with respect to CBA of bifurcating any OT going forward. Is that correct? I thought I heard Chief express that you guys are looking at different programs, so there's no issue with respect to that spiking of the retirement.
That's true, and we're also looking at limiting overtime in general to the officers. Not only as there's a fairness and equity issue in that, and also we got to look after their safety. They need to be able to do police work first before they can do overtime, court time, special duty. We don't want that to interfere in them getting sick or getting ill. So we're working on some ideas on trying to come up with a general limitation on that as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Broderick has a question.
It's related to the overtime. I think you shared before that the COVID-19 enforcement unit was suspended due to the overtime abuses. Am I remembering that right?
You're correct.
Okay, and is that still the case?
Yes, sir. All,
Okay.
that money was all funded with CARES money, and they were doing primarily, in fact, almost exclusively, enforcement for violations of the governor's and mayor's, declarations. So that money has lapsed already, December 31st, but, we gave the money back a couple of weeks, within a couple of weeks of ending the program ourselves.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other further questions?
Okay, Chief, the agenda also includes discussion regarding HPD's Intelligent Enforcement Unit. Any comment or feedback
I
on
was
that?
hoping you would ask. Let me preface, before I start to even answer that, you know, years ago as a motor patrol officer, and just a regular uniformed patrolman, I was given information that a certain vehicle parked at a certain location had been stolen, and that the person might return back to it soon to pick up the car, the person that stole the car. I asked my sergeant, what should I do? I was given permission to take off my blue light. We had a single dome light then. I sat there and voila, within 15 minutes, the person showed up to claim the car using the keys which were stolen with the car a few weeks earlier. He was arrested for auto theft. Again, as a patrolman, I was told that I was on day shift, I was told that a car would show up outside of a certain disco establishment. I'm dating myself by it, but that's what it was. And it would show up and park next to a chain link fence at about 10:30 that time. And I was told the car was stolen, the person was aware of it, he'd been using it for a while. You couldn't go by the license plate, you had to check the VIN number, the VIN plate on the car. I passed that information out to some specialized services officers that were working that night. I was kind of laughed at, ridiculed a bit, but at 10:30 that night, the car showed up just as promised. You know, our role as law enforcement is to protect life and property, and we're an investigation agency. We look into things, we look into information all the time. We received information that a high-ranking cabinet official may have been involved in drugs one way or another. It's out there now, so I'll talk about it. And yes, it was Dr. Happy. I was the one that instructed the Intelligence Enforcement Unit to take a look at and see if it was true. We came up with a game plan. We watched him for a while. It became clear that he wasn't, and we stopped it as soon as possible. There was nothing wrong with that. We violated no one's civil rights. We use the Intelligence Enforcement Unit for things like that constantly because they're the unit that is most proficient at that. I saw comments made by some people who said, why couldn't we have used narcotics on the narcotics division, or why couldn't we have could have used brand new footmen, but that's not the point. We wanted to keep it tight. As Dr. Happy stated in that article, he didn't even know he was being surveilled, and that's the good thing. We looked at it. If he was involved in something, we would have known and take some kind of action. And that's why the Intelligence Enforcement Unit is now called Intelligence and Enforcement. They would have taken the ball, or they would have passed it on to the appropriate authority. We did nothing wrong. As soon as we knew it was right, we did not make a media post out of it. We did not make an issue out of it. And I stand by the actions that we did. There was no personal vendettas. There was no personal gain by what was done. In fact, we, like we've done in so many other cases, we proved that the information was not accurate, and whoever was making the accusation should go back and take a look at the info they had. To give you just another phrase, when I worked at, another example, when I worked at the airport with the smuggling unit, we got the information, a couple coming in from Korea on their way back to the mainland was smuggling drugs. We stopped them, they laughed, we had a blast with them. We ran the dog over their property. They told us that there was a disgruntled employee who knew their travel agenda and was doing this to them throughout the United States. Unfortunately, the dog did alert on their cooler that they had with them, and inside there was a huge ham bone, believe it or not. So was it a false positive? Well, not really. The dog was hungry probably. We ended up handcuffing this couple and taking pictures at their request. They thought it was so funny. but we were obligated to check out the information just as we were here. So I don't think anything that was done wrong, we're not associated in any way to what the KLOs were doing with the intelligence unit at that time. And I stand by what we did is what was right, and having to do it again, I think I'd probably do it again. Depending on the information that comes in, that makes a determination of what we do, how far we go, and who we actually use for that information, to take action. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions from any commissioners?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
one
do.
question, Commissioner Robert.
Chief, if you could educate me a little bit more about the Intelligence Enforcement Unit, does it have written policies and procedures that address the scope of its authority?
They do, like any other division, they have a manual of operations.
Okay.
Their primary role, in short, right now is to gather intelligence and to take action on that intelligence or pass it off to the appropriate agency or unit that's involved in direct function for that investigation. They also perform, like I said, intelligent enforcement functions where they're actively involved in investigations that lead, to arrest and hopefully convictions. So there is a manual of operations that they do abide by.
Okay, and then their findings go to who?
Findings of
Of the unit, when they make a determination or they finished an investigation, who gets the results of the investigation?
Well, they come under my direct supervision right now. Whatever the findings, they would do like any other division. It gets reported and forwarded to the prosecutor, or a lot of the work that they do goes to the U.S. Attorney at this point. We have a couple officers there who are cross-deputized and have been taking a lot of the firearms and drug cases over to the U.S. Attorney's Office because of higher penalties being involved with the crimes.
Okay. Was there a written report that came as a result of the investigation of Mr. Happy?
Dr. Happy, there would have been surveillance notes, and those are normally kept for a year by policy and destroyed, and they were destroyed within the year.
Okay. And what role did the chief play, if anything, in the investigation? Chief Bauer?
She was just made aware of it because of the notification procedures. That's it.
Okay. I wasn't on the commission at the time. Was the commission made aware of the investigation?
No.
Okay.
Well,
And as you look back on it, that would still be your position, that the commission should not be told about such things?
Yes, if I told you about everything we did, we wouldn't have enough Wednesdays in the month to be here.
Okay. So as you look back on it, you would still take the same position of not informing the commission about that investigation?
Sure, I see no reason to inform them one way or the other.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for this question. I had just a comment, Chief, and I guess that's where the criticism is, or how it surfaced in the media at least, with respect to who was subject to this investigation. And I thank you for sharing pretty bluntly what transpired. But I guess the question for me would be that if there was something that came to the IEU's attention or your attention that you felt needed further investigation, you would have the ability to initiate that investigation, right? Based on your subjectivity and your own analysis. And I think that's what the public should know. If that's what you have the ability to do, then it's something that the IEU's role and responsibility is within the department, right?
I would hope after 45 years of experience in this police department, I would know, yes, yeah, you're exactly right, and I hope my experience plays well into that. Just to give you another example, I led the white-collar crime, the financial crimes unit for a while. The financial crimes unit is charged with investigating public corruption when it's brought to their attention. And we did the same thing, surveillance on city employees, because it was under their purview for theft of overtime or theft of time from the city. And they would go out and do surveillance of city employees, not cabinet officials, but employees and lower ranking city managers and that sort of thing. Sometimes that case came to fruition, sometimes it didn't. When Chuck Totto was a commissioner, executive there, He shared a lot of information. We worked closely with him and did things because a lot of times the reference would come from his office to us for the investigation. So I see similarities in all of these things. Nobody's rights were violated. I got to emphasize that again. And again, we have to check out, is the information good? Is it bad? What kind of action needs to be taken? And in this case of, thank goodness for all, it turned out to be nothing, and everything went on about the way it was.
Thanks, Chief. Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess, sorry, I don't want to belabor this, but the elephant in the room is that these issues are coming up anonymously. So, it is our responsibility as a commission to bring these issues forward. So I hope you appreciate the open dialogue, and I hope we can continue, as these issues come up. Because, we rather these issues come to us not anonymously, and if an officer feels like that there was some issue with respect to an operation, that they would come forward. So I just want to note that.
Yeah, I feel exactly like you. I wish these officers would come to us first. We could have explained it internally, but I know exactly the source of the information in this case. I know why. I have a lot of background on it. And it's not only in this case, but there's some other cases as well. To Commissioner Gibson's comments about the retirements, we know that some officers have gone to some media to try and say that there were a lot of retirements, a lot more than normal, and it has to do with morale. Well, when you check the numbers, it's not any more than normal, and if that's too bad morale, well, we've had bad morale for year after year. So I wish they'd come to us first. We could probably answer the questions a lot better, and the media seems to be, I don't want to say all media, but some just seem to be taking it without verifying, trying to get the whole story first.
Chief, I know that when we receive anonymous letters or complaints, it seems like in my short period of time here, we've gotten a lot. All of them mention the same thing, which is they're concerned about retribution. Do you have a response to that?
I don't know of any retribution that's been taken, at least not by us here. I'm very open. I'll just rely on the answer I just gave you. I'm easily approachable. I think Deputy Takasaki Young, most of our chiefs, most of our commanders are open. I mean, I'll talk, anybody of any rank can come and see me, and quite a few do walk right into my office on a day-to-day basis if I've got the time, and either talk story or call me or tell me about things. I can see out of the corner of my eye as I'm talking, my phone is blowing up with text, so I'm sure I'm getting comments one way or the other, but I accept those comments. I value and trust those opinions. Earlier today, we met with all of the majors from the patrol division prior to the command meeting. And, I really want to have open conversations, and I don't know it all. I don't think any of us know it all. I need to hear from them, and I need to hear from them honestly what they think, whether I like it or not. And if there's something, if they've got a grievance, I think it should be brought to us first. Not everybody of a lower rank understands the workings of the fourth floor. There's been a lot of comments on a website about the collective patrol experience on the fourth floor being only about 10 years. Well, obviously the person forgot and neglected me because I've got more than 10 years of patrol experience. So, just social media has created a lot of things, and just this anger, there's a wave of where, the inmates want to run the asylum. Well, you can't do that because you don't have all the knowledge of all the working parts. We're working very hard to try to make things right, as even what Major Lambert, the presentation, I mean, this has been something we've been trying to do for a while with training division to get them going and move things in the right direction. It's very hard changing a mindset. People, and especially policemen, police officers, do not like change, and I'm sorry, it's got to change, and it's got to change for the better.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any further comments or questions for Chief?
The Commissioner Chin over there raising his hand, and he's not telling me hi.
Hi, Commissioner Chin, go ahead.
Hi, and then Chair, I'm sorry, I'm just slow in forming my questions, so I apologize to you and to the rest of the commission members. I'm just being at home, so I think that's what happens. Chief, I think on the intelligence enforcement unit, I think like, I'm actually sitting here, I hear what you're saying, I can appreciate it. You know, I kind of get it. I think what the struggle or the hard part for all of us is trying to, yeah, I think it's trying to avoid sort of the trauma that the whole city went through with the previous chief and his use of the intelligence enforcement unit. So I think the Dr. Happy episode, while maybe in your mind you can see, okay, well, this is just a lead and we're following up on the lead. It had nothing, you know, we found nothing, so end of story. I think what's more bothersome is the idea that, you know, either, you know, very high elected officials like the mayor or the police chief herself or himself has that kind of access to the intelligence enforcement unit where they get some sort of special investigation that takes place. And, you know, I think this is more of a comment than a question, because I don't really have an answer, frankly. I see how there's a use for a special unit like that. I don't know what's the right way to be able to, you know, make sure that what happened in the Kealoha matter doesn't happen again. But I would just say or suggest to the chair that this be something that we really think about, either that we look at the policies for the intelligence enforcement unit and see if there's things that we can suggest there, but something that would be able to give the public more comfort. I just think that there's, you know, we're all kind of going through some post-traumatic stress from just from what happened and what we all, you know, I think the department went through and what the entire community went through with what happened previously. And I think that's the reason why people, including myself, reacted the way that we did when we heard about the Dr. Happy investigation. So I think that's all I can say. I guess I didn't form a question, but I think that's where I got left, or that's where I left off on the issue.
I think the real story would have been had we not taken any action. Imagine if we didn't and something was going on. I think that's the problem there. We have a duty and obligation to all levels of government, to all levels of the community. The writer of the article himself told me, so you mean if you got an information that I was involved in dealing drugs, you would look at it? And the answer was yes. We take a look at it. We do it all the time. We have an obligation to. Some of the biggest cases have started with anonymous or the slightest amount of information. So yes, I mean, we've got to take a look at it. How is it going to be prevented? I don't think you got any way of preventing it. If people are going to, that's like asking, how are we going to stop corruption on all levels? I don't know. You got to trust the people and try to do the best you can to put the people there. I've been here for 45 years. I could be corrupt. I could hide things. You would think that I learned from my 45 years, so I could do it. I could be a really good criminal. I couldn't because I got a conscience. Sorry. But yeah, it's a tough call. It's a hard sell, and it's something earning the people's the people's confidence and trust is a hard thing to do. But you know, I think we're trying. We're really trying. We have our naysayers. I'm not ignorant. I read the comments. I read the comments in that story. I was blasted in some of those comments, but those comments were pretty ignorant from my standpoint.
Commissioner Broderick has a question.
Chief, if the mayor or another elected official was to ask the chief to use the intelligence enforcement unit in a way that the chief felt was not appropriate, does Chief Ballard feel that she has the authority to say no to that request?
I think both she and I would both say no. I know I wouldn't allow it, and I don't think she would.
Thank you.
That unit has a specific function, and I think it fulfills a big need. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you what the types of investigations they are, but they've been involved in some of the most high-level cases in recent years since we've come on, and it's been very successful work. We've restored the trust with our federal partners with that unit, and it's really strong, maybe stronger than I've seen it in quite a while.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner.
Sorry, really quick. So I'm looking at the org chart and it does report to you. Was that the same org structure under Chief Kealoha?
No, the criminal intelligence unit reported directly to Chief Kealoha at that time.
Yeah, so that's one change that was specifically made. So at
It
least
was
there's-
changed, yes.
Yes,
And that was a deliberate change that the chief and I had discussed, partly because of my background with operations enforcement. So I was much more familiar with things, and hopefully would have a better understanding of what they do and don't do.
Thankful for that extra control on this unit, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on our agenda. Thank you, Chiefs. Approval of minutes for the open session of December 2nd, 2020. Commissioner Okinaga.
With a couple minor typo type changes, I move for approval of the minutes for open session of December 2.
Great, so noting no substantive changes, and we will be informing staff of the edits with respect to spelling. Any further there's a motion, is there a second?
Non-substantive,
Any
yeah.
further discussion to approving the minutes in an amended form? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye by roll call. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga?
Aye.
Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
Commissioner Broderick?
Aye.
And Commissioner Chin?
Aye.
Very much, motion carries. Moving on to new business, Commissioner Perry, report on actions taken at the executive session of November 18th.
Yes, during the executive session of November 18, 2020, Commissioners approved the October 21st, 2020 executive session minutes and took actions on 3 complaints involving 5 officers. HPC number 20-045 involved 1 complainant and 1 officer. Discourtesy profanity complaint was sustained. The overbearing conduct complaint was not sustained. HPC number 20-054 involved 1 complainant and 3 officers. The complaints of discourtesy, abusive remarks, threatening, unnecessary use of force, excessive use of force, discourtesy, disparaging remarks, and mistreatment of prisoner complaints were not sustained. HPC number 20-069 involved 1 complainant and 1 officer. The complaints of discourtesy, name, badge number, and discourtesy, intimidate were not sustained. I make a motion to accept this report.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, vote by roll call. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga?
Aye.
Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
Commissioner Broderick?
Aye.
And Commissioner Chin?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Moving on, new business, number 2, review of HPD policies. With respect to Chief Ballard's response, her memo dated, it's our memo to Chief dated December 10th, 2020. And Chief's response with respect to the review of HPD policies before they're amended. Just for some background, we discussed at the first November meeting proposing a process whereby the HPC would be able to have a first pass at any proposed amendments to policies, because as noted in our memo, it is one of our chartered duties to review responsibilities or policies of the department. And in Chief's response, while she remains open to further discussion, she had indicated some concerns with respect to us having a first review of the policies, and welcomed us instead to continue to look at all policies which are published online, and propose any changes that we may have. Further background, we wanted to just note that we talked with our attorney, Dwayne at the time, who shared there's a existing procedure that the Committee on Executive Matters and Legal Affairs does at the Honolulu City Council, which allows them to have hard copies distributed during the executive session to review any potential confidential information that may not be privy to the public just yet, prior to any action that they would take. So that was what we were proposing to Chief as a potential possibility where we would be able to, again, have a first pass at any potential amendments to policy and give feedback to the department before it's actually published. And before I open it up for further discussion, I just wanted to note 2 recent amendments to policies that were both talked about this morning or earlier in the meeting. Policy number 1.112 and policy number 5.01 proposed changes both in
November 30th and I think early December, which notes a reference to HPC or noting HPC cases of misconduct that would be taken into account. And I'll just note 5.01, which Chief Takasaki Young mentioned earlier. The amendment that was adopted on 12/9/2020 indicates in the first paragraph, the annual review and analysis. A documented annual review and analysis of administrative and criminal complaints within a calendar year, including those accepted by the HPC, shall be completed by the management analyst by March 31 of the succeeding year. So this just shows a note that while we want to be able to provide input to the department when they are reviewing policies and procedures, when policies do involve naming HPC or responding to an HPC request that we have made informally, it would be nice to, at least have a first pass at it or give input. And in recognizing Chief's openness with respect to inviting the HPC to look at all policies, I just want to note that this would be way more efficient if we were to have a first pass at policies that actually indicate something that HPC had suggested prior to you guys adopting or proposing it internally. So I'm sorry if that's kind of jumbled, but that is the background that I just wanted for further discussion among the commission. And I think just to preface it even a little bit more, this was somewhat in response to the audit process that HPD just went through, because some of the questions that came before the commission was, okay, what are you guys doing? What is the commission doing in looking at some of the policies, which is a chartered duty in the charter for the commission's responsibilities. So just putting it out there. If no response, I understand, but go ahead, Commissioner Okinaga.
I support your request, I think, to the chief to please consider providing us a draft of provisions. The part that I totally get though, and maybe in reference to University of Hawaii policies, is these are like ground level policies and procedures. So for example, at the university we have regents policies and we have executive policies and now we have procedures. And these are really kind of like the operating level things. So I understand that sometimes it feels like, why are we reviewing them or something? So I feel like there's a way we can look into it or articulate what kinds of policies we want to either proffer or existing policies that we want to revise. But there's something up there that we should be weighing in on, and then there's definitely the vast majority of it which we have no real experience or knowledge about. So that's the kind of dilemma, I think.
Yeah, if I just totally agree with Commissioner Okinaga. I'm just looking at the policies. One of them is use of force, and another is public touring of the Alapai headquarters. I mean, just to contrast those,
Right.
I think we would all want to be involved in looking at use of force, and none of us would want to be involved in public touring of the Alapai headquarters. And where we draw that line, I think, is the difficult question.
Yeah, I share the same view. It seemed to me, though, that there may be some major policies, such as use of force, that we should be involved with, and any policy that has an impact on the commission, or any policy that the commission has made a recommendation upon. And then, we won't bother with the Alapai review, inspection. But we have the right to do that by going online and looking at that policy, and if we did decide we want to input into that, we have the right to do that. I think the chief's saying that. But it does seem to me that there are some policies where we should have an opportunity, if it's being reviewed, changed. I mean, if it's an existing policy, fine, and they're not doing anything with it. But as soon as they're starting to change it, I think there are some policies that we should have the opportunity to input.
So I guess if we could request Chief Takasaki Young, if you could maybe just let Chief know about our discussion and the fact that she remains open to, looking at some process that would make the department feel comfortable, because I think what was of concern was
perhaps that it's under development, so it wouldn't be time for, public input. However, the commission is, while we're part of the public, it's one of our commission's duties to review policy. So if we could have this continued dialogue or conversation.
And I think we're well aware and very accommodating to the process that they have to go through for changing policies, all of the process that you saw with the
Yeah.
union consultation and all that. So we're flexible as to when, I think, is most advisory, at what stage in the process is appropriate for the commission to weigh, because we definitely wouldn't want to get to the end of the road and then undo, months of negotiating or consultation with the union.
I'm a little bit unclear where we are right now.
We're still at the stage of asking chief to consider our request.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where we are, and I'm hoping she'd be more open. Go ahead, chief.
Okay, I'll bring it up. I got your recommendations, and we'll bring it up to her. Like Chief McCarthy said, she doesn't get back till I think the 21st or so.
Great, thank you very much, appreciate that. Okay, moving on. Chief of Police evaluation, unfinished business. We're continuing with the chief's evaluation and continue to welcome the public to provide input. We do have a revised timeline with respect to chief's response for her self-evaluation, which is in your mail. But again, the commission continues to do their due diligence in reaching out to community members, HPD personnel for feedback with respect to chief's performance in 2020. And any other questions or comments with respect to the evaluation? Just thank you everybody for your commitment. I think we were gonna try to pass on this meeting to really, focus on our outreach, but one of our commissioners reminded us that we shall meet twice a month, so we're here, and I'm glad we are meeting. So thanks for being with us. Okay, the next item is status of conflict of interest policy, and I'll ask Commissioner Broderick if he'll take that one up.
Sure. This is one really where I'm more concerned and confused than anything else. Chair, you had written on November 18th to the police chief our formal request to revise HPD standards of conduct to expressly prohibit employees from actions that create or give the appearance of a conflict of interest. And then the chief wrote back to you on November 23rd and said that the issue, as I informed the Honolulu Police Commission and as confirmed by the Honolulu Police Commission's Deputy Corporation Counsel, this issue is the basis of an active lawsuit. Therefore, I will take the Deputy Corporation Counsel's recommendation under consideration, and we'll discuss this issue with counsel in light of the lawsuit. I don't recall any Deputy Corporation Counsel recommendation, and so that's the confusion that I wanted to raise, or the question that I wanted to raise. And Dwayne, I might be wrong, but I don't remember any recommendation from you.
I don't recall making a recommendation. I would not have made it in public with another entity here. I did confirm in public that there is a lawsuit.
Right.
But that was the basis.
So as far as I'm concerned, the formal request stands and the chief should meet it.
So do you think a follow-up letter would be necessary?
I do.
In addition to the discussion, the
I
open
do,
discussion?
yes.
Okay, would you be able to help draft that response and then?
I'd be happy to.
Okay, because I think what's interesting is that the audit touched on this issue as well, so that can, be part of our discussion going forward. Okay, any other further discussion on this status of conflict of interest policy? Thank you, Commissioner Broderick. Okay, number 3 under unfinished business, further discussion of the audit of the Honolulu Police Department. Thank you all for the previous discussion already on the audit. We just wanted to give the department an opportunity to either share with us anything additional from what they gathered from the audit, how they're going to be addressing the audit, a potential timeline. And I know this might be all a work in progress, but I thought the preview at the MLA committee gave a lot of feedback that I'm not sure all the commissioners were able to watch. However, we thank Executive Officer Yuen for putting together some notes from the audit, and just wanted to open it up for discussion. And I know we don't have the chief here today, but it still is a good opportunity to just discuss where we go from here. And I'll let other commissioners comment before I say anything further. Anybody want to open it up with any questions for chiefs? Takasaki, Young, or McCarthy, or give you an opportunity to share anything with us before we go into questions.
We don't have any comment. A lot of that is either being addressed or has been addressed. So it's a work in progress at best on our point, or a work that's completed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what we talked about with Major Lambert, the fact that you guys already implemented a change to policy with respect to that review is a good sign. Chief, I just wanted to thank you for that, because I think we would be very interested in getting that information rather than on an annual basis, even on a monthly or quarterly basis, if that would be possible. Just because I think that is a good check for, I mean, a good, I guess, information for us to review and kind of get updated on. Sorry, I'm talking about policy 5.01. The analysis by the management risk.
Yeah, Commissioner Olivado, so that's just implemented, so I believe our imposed deadline is in March of this year. So I know it's gonna be a work in progress, but it's for me to provide better direction of, once we get the information, how to properly direct the appropriate recommendations out of what is identified regarding certain misconduct issues. Whether if it's a retraining for personnel to be implemented, like I know Major Lambert talked about an ART, a current or new recruit class that we have to implement, or maybe a policy revision that we have to take a look into and clarify things for the officers.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just, to my fellow commissioners, what I think would be really helpful is if we ask the department to provide in writing to the commission what changes the department's gonna make based on the audit findings and recommendations. I think to get that in writing from the department is important, and I'd like to see that.
Great, good suggestion. Any comments with respect to that request?
I think supplementing what the audit response was from the department.
Yeah.
Because they did a response.
In the report itself,
It
yeah.
was attached, yep.
Yeah.
So it does lay out some of what, they're doing, and definitely the training that we got a report on was an important component.
To the extent that there are additional things
Yes.
that the department's doing that are not reflected in their response, I think we should get that in writing.
Okay.
And one of those things I think that I was really interested in is the data analytics, because I know Chief has referenced that there may be inadequate resources at this time for that effort. So without those resources, then what, in lieu of that, then what will be done?
Yeah, that one struck me as well, because I noticed in the chief's comments with the city council, she made comment that the department didn't have the capabilities to do that. And I was wondering if you could tell us what you're gonna do to address that issue.
I'm sorry, but I didn't quite understand the question.
Okay, so the chief made comment that the department did not have the analytical capability to address some of the, or look at some of the data and take action upon it. And I was wondering what you're going to do as a result.
We're already looking at it, but I think what she really meant was that we don't have an expertise. She's looking at the data. It's one of the things that I've been pushing, data management or data, just mining our data, making better use of our data. And what we're finding is the mechanisms we have internally don't really allow for that. So she's talking about that along with a risk management type thing where we're looking, it's hard to predict future behavior of officers. if we've got some bad indicators in the past, that might help, but just to come up with indicators of how to prevent future, I don't know, I've seen some of the best officers go bad and some of the best, worst officers go good and everything in between. So I think she was meaning something in that area, because just the volume of data and what data do we use, how do we use it? You know, although I don't have my degree in criminology or police science, we've been policemen or police officers all our lives, and we know police work, not risk management or future behavioral sciences. So I think that's what she was referring to. Again, you gotta ask her, don't hold me hard and fast to that, but I think that's what she meant.
So what's happening then? So what are you gonna do? Are you looking at recruiting somebody? Are you looking at?
Yes. We're actually, we're trying to, we have research analysts, but they've either retired or left for better paying jobs, because we're not the best paying when it comes to that area. And we're really low in that area right now, so we're looking to recruit and bring people in to that area, but one of those areas would probably be dedicated just to this function.
Good, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Okinawa?
Oh, no. I was just gonna say there's specific reference to a new unit, Chief, within HPD to be staffed by trained civilian analysts. And I don't mean to catch you flat-footed, it's just, I was super excited by that, but then I thought maybe the reference to the lack of, like, bad timing in terms of resources. So then the question became what? And I thought I heard a partial answer today, I just wanna verify. So at the supervisor level, what I thought I heard was that the evaluations or the assessments will be different categories of looking at it. So down to the supervisorial level, forget data, but on the individual officers, the supervisors are gonna be starting to gather different kinds of information that perhaps are better predictors of somebody who needs intervention or
Yes.
who could benefit from intervention.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You did hear me right. What we're doing is we're refining our own policies and practices internally. Like I said, every month a commander is responsible for reviewing a list of officers that have either use of force or complaints, and those complaints might be anything from deadly force to being involved in a motor vehicle accident. So previously there was a template that was rather short. We're requiring a lot more work on their part, where they actually have to discuss with the officers, look into the officers. Are they working too much? Are they having too many incidents of this? Is it indicative of future behavior? Are they getting involved in too many incidents?
Right.
What it might be. So we're requiring more work on their part, and it comes up in a report up to us, to the professional standards office. So yeah, we're looking at that, and then also training to try and get them to recognize, things like that. In retrospect, again, I just want to give another example of something. When I was at the airport, we had a dog handler, and he was always sniffling and rubbing his nose, and we attributed it to the fact that he lived in a cold, rainy area. Later, we found out he got involved in an accident, and he was using cocaine the whole time. And we were narcotics officers. He was right under our nose, and we didn't recognize it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, hopefully, we're trying to train the guys up and trying to look for outside training and just be more aware of things like that.
And one of the comments from the EMLA meeting was Chief's discussion with respect to separating the commission from the department. I'd like to have a further discussion with Chief about those thoughts, because I think that's something we can maybe bounce some ideas around, because I think from the council's question, it wants the commission to be a separate body that would be able to provide proper oversight of the department. But I guess the question is, the way that the org chart sets up, it appears that we are one in the same. So I'm curious to just have more discussion with the rest of the commission and Chief about that idea, because she had some comments with respect to separating us.
I'm not going to even touch that one. I suggest you talk to her.
Okay. Yeah, we'll save that one for her. Any further questions or comments, Commissioner Chin?
So Chair, I want to just echo what you were saying, because it sounded to me like I think something that would be appropriate for us to address, like that would be a priority, is really trying to understand, what's our relationship with, with the department, so structurally, what does that mean? What currently exists, is that the best way to go about doing things? But I think the other thing that I've, picked up from the short time that I've been on the commission so far is that, here we are, we're the citizen group that I think the public will perceive that, we're like the chiefs, we're like the oversight of we provide oversight to the chief as a group of citizens. But I think what all of us who are members now have learned is that a lot of what happens is that what we do is purely advisory. And I think the result of it is that some people have even quit the commission out of frustration because of that. And so I think that that's something that we really should be thinking about, because it goes down to really simple things. Even this came up during the Executive Matters and Legal Affairs meeting with the City Council, where I think it was pretty clearly stated that basically we might make a decision as a group of citizens about whether there should be some discipline that gets imposed against an officer. But really, even our recommendations are ones that can be overruled by the chief or by the department if they end up doing, if they decide that that's what is really the correct recourse to have. So that last part is not something that most people in the public know. They just assume that we have this oversight. And I think what we find is that a lot of our role is advisory. I'm not necessarily advocating for more power or anything. I mean, I'm really not. But I think in terms of going forward, I think that that's something that obviously the public is very sensitive about, and they want to be part of the process. And yes, it does have to do with kind of the trauma that we all went through with the last couple of years in the prior department's administration, sadly. But I think anything that we can do to be able to improve and build upon that trust, I think would be a good thing.
Thank you. Good points, Commissioner Chin. Thank you so much. Any feedback, any further feedback or discussion regarding this issue?
I think a small point.
Yes.
So, one of the minor omissions, I think, that I couldn't find anyway in the audit was recognition that when there's a 3-time complainant, so when the public complains 3 times about the same officer, then automatically there's an alert to PSL. So we don't know what happens after that. So maybe some follow-up information from the chief about that. But that is an early alert of sorts that we're involved in, and I didn't see any reference to that. And I think it's something worth following up on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but I did notice, sorry, another policy change. I actually read these. So we really appreciate the policy changes. One of the no other changes on policy number 5.01 was review and disposition of misconduct investigations, where you guys added, when the HPC sustains charges against an officer or employer advises the chief that a case warrants attention, the commission's report will be forwarded to the chief of police. Noting this in writing is good, because I know in practice that's what you folks did, but the fact that you guys are putting it in policy helps us. But I think to Commissioner Okinaga's point is she's talking about those that may not even be sustained, but also raise some issue of, if we want to call it early recognition of an issue that an officer might have. So, thank you.
All we can see is Commissioner Chin.
Yeah, did they sign off or did we let them go? Sorry, Chief, can I ask one other question? I know this isn't on the agenda, but I was just wondering how the rollout of the vaccines are going for HPD personnel. And we saw that Chief actually volunteered to get the vaccine. So just wondering, department-wide, how is it going?
Yeah, the chief and Deputy Takasaki Young were actually featured. I keep seeing his picture pop up. I wasn't there that day. I did get the vaccine later. I couldn't make it that day. It went out pretty well. There were over 1,300 Honolulu Police Department employees that received the vaccine, and we'll be scheduled at the earliest later this month to receive the second dose. So it went pretty well. I do want to say that the organization out there was very, very good. It was very well run by the people in charge. Our major events division had a big role in that, organizing it. It gave us an opportunity to test not only the organizational skills there, but also some of the specialized equipment that we have that we could test under, a good, safe parameter rather than waiting to be out in the field in a panic mode and testing it. So it worked out very well. It'll do the same thing again when we go back for the second dose. And we've got other agencies asking for our help in trying to administer their program. So we'll be offering that more than likely as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Broderick has a question.
Chief, I'm really encouraged that 1,300 HPD personnel got the vaccination. Thanks for letting us know. Approximately what number chose not to get the vaccination?
Out of those numbers, just extrapolating, it would be roughly about 500 sworn personnel didn't get it.
Okay.
And for a variety of reasons, at the last minute, we were told that people with allergies should not be taking a vaccine until the CDC could actually explore why, because they're responsible for most of the major side effects, people that do get it. And some of the others just have personal reasons. Some never take the flu shot and just think that they can go at it. So it wasn't a mandatory thing for them. We left it up to them. It was a personal decision. And
Great.
some of them now are trying to get the first dose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, or Commissioner Chin, no further questions? We're moving on to Executive Officer's Report. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Chair. At the end of the year for 2020, there was a total of 119 cases that were received and registered. So far for this month, effective as of yesterday, we had 2 cases. Of the 119 cases, 24 are pending. And, well, at the end of the report, of the 119, 32 were referred to PSO because they didn't meet our requirements. 24 were closed by PSR, public service report, 4 were administrative closed, and 7 were withdrawn.
Any questions for Jim? I just had a follow-up question from Dr. Burney, our testifier, with respect to his pending complaint. He's been informed that it's being worked on and he's been kept up to speed on his case?
Yes, that's correct. In fact, I did speak with him this morning.
Okay.
And I advised him who the investigator was assigned to this case, and that is currently being worked on.
Okay. There might be maybe some additional communication if we could just get back to him, because a follow-up from his testimony today with respect to just making him aware that we are continuing to work on it. He was pretty adamant about trying to request that we tell Chief about it, but I think he needs to understand what our process is.
Yes, and it is explained to him what we investigate and what we cannot.
Okay, good, Jim. Any other questions?
Well, I would like to give a office report.
Oh, thank you.
That starting on January 10th, the vacancy announcement for the 3rd investigator position will be advertised on the city website, and it will be running from, I believe, the 10th to the 20th for the SR 24 investigator civilian position.
Thank you. And that hiring process is undertaken completely by HPC, correct? And HPD has no influence on our hiring of that?
Well, I would like to thank HPD for doing the background, all the preliminary background, in order for the process to work, to be advertised. It went to the Bureau of Fiscal Services, and we received a call last week that it's going to be advertised. And yeah, thank you HPD, thank you Bureau of Fiscal Services. And the hiring process, of course, will go from there. For the selection, the interviews, and all that stuff will be by HPC.
Thank you very much. Question?
So there was a question, I think, at the EMLA meeting about the duration of our investigations, and Chief didn't respond. She responded about their investigations. So I think we should, and it's great you give us these reports, because then we can have a sense of how long it takes to fill an investigator position. But to the extent that when I'm asking you questions about how is the vacancy impacting the pace of our investigations, or if we're starting to see backlog or anything like that, maybe best to discuss it in this forum, just so we can, I don't know what, encourage, beg, whatever. Dwayne can go back and use his considerable influence with the deputies that advise HR or whatever. But in any event, it's just, please help us to fill, because it is, or it isn't impacting the pace of our.
Well, understand me so that, I was told that, we, because of the holidays,
I see.
there were a lot of vacations that were being used.
I see.
I think it was the timing of it, as well.
Got it.
But I think what would be helpful, and I wanted to ask the rest of the commission, whether a presentation by Jim or whoever he designates with respect to our complaint process might be really helpful for the public, and just for them to understand that, our complaint process is totally separate from HPD and of the steps we take, because I don't think they understand. I mean, even from the questions at the hearing, it didn't appear that they understood how separate it was. And I think Chief Takasaki Young, I see you laughing, but you were able to clarify that, the process does not include the front end of what HPC's investigation is, but when it gets to you folks, it's 2 months later. Is that right? Okay, never mind. It's okay.
Commissioner Alivado, we had to answer some questions for Major Lambert.
Okay, no, I just wanted to, just to clarify that, I think the question to you was how long the investigation takes after it comes from HPC, and you're able to clarify that the turnaround time for you folks is like 2 months, right?
It's usually within 2 months for the
Yeah.
conversion. I'm just gonna give that as a ballpark, because some takes longer than others, some may take shorter than others. It just and like you guys know, it depends on the complexity of the complaint. Yes. And what follow-ups we have to do.
Okay, thank you. So I'll work with Jim on.
Yeah, and I just want to thank Jim, because I know when we do have a vacancy, we see your name on more of the investigations, so I know you're having to do more than your normal fair share of work, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, moving on. I think that brings us to executive session. Potential.
Yes, Commissioner Shin, you owe me. The following agenda items will be reviewed in executive session pursuant to HRS 92-5A, subsections 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8. To consider the hire, evaluation, dismissal, or discipline of an officer or employee, or of charges brought against the officer or employee where consideration of matters affecting privacy will be involved. To consult with its attorneys on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities, to investigate proceedings regarding criminal misconduct, to consider sensitive matters related to public safety or security, to deliberate or make a decision upon a matter that requires the consideration of information that must be kept confidential pursuant to state or federal law or a court order. During this meeting, there may be discussion with the Chief of Police and her staff regarding internal strategies and sensitive criminal investigation matters relating to public safety. That disclosure could significantly risk the circumvention of law and undermine the effectiveness of the public's protection by the police. And so I'm going to move that we move into executive session.
Thank you, Commissioner Barwick. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor by roll call. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair.
Aye.
Commissioner Okinaga.
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Commissioner Broderick.
Aye.
And Commissioner Chin.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. We'll be going into executive session. Members of the public, thank you for joining us. We'll be signing off into executive session now. Thank you.